Hey everyone, it's the Beach with another episode. Today we're covering the topics of nutrition and health, police brutality, and racism across America, including violence, racially motivated violence. I'm here with Mr. Gavin Wright, who has generously agreed to join this interview and be on the BQ report for a good reason to talk about many topics going on in the Americas right now as we currently see it in the political sphere. And so here right now we're going to talk about something very important, which is nutrition and health. So Gavin, right, I have a question for you. What is the best way to maintain a healthy diet and a healthy lifestyle that actually gives you energy and power throughout the day, that you can actually feel gives you positive effects when it comes to eating right and maintaining healthy fitness and diet? Do you have any tips on how to eat right, first of all, and actually change the diet process into a positive manner?
So, I don't really have any tips on actually what foods to eat and stuff. But there's this thing I saw a while ago. It's called like the 5 meal plate thing. It is healthy advice, but like
Sounds
don't
good.
eat like the fat kind of bread, like whole grain stuff like that. That's what I've heard.
The whole grain, always wrong with whole grain, right? Whole grain cereals, vitamins, because they usually have vitamins and minerals included into those cereals. So I definitely agree with those sentiments. So I think it all comes down to at the bottom line is just working out. Doing cardio all the time at the gym. Doing cardio, running a lot, maintaining a good heart rate, as well as eating the right foods like having veggies, proteins. I think people underestimate proteins a lot. Like proteins, they rebuild muscles, they get rid of hunger, so they make you less hungry as the day goes on. And so proteins are key as well. On top of that, avoiding fats, avoiding like trans fats, avoiding saturated fats from like fast foods and like potatoes and stuff. Even like saturated starches. Fried foods especially. I think avoiding those kind of negative foods for a healthy diet and nutrition. So that's like one of the things that I do is I pick foods that are good and I pick foods that are bad, and I kind of stay away from the ones that are bad, and I keep eating the ones that are good. And that's how I see that. So now, with that being said, what is the main lesson you got from this health and nutrition lesson?
From this lesson,
Yeah, like what's the main takeaway, the main conclusion?
don't eat fast food. I mean, in the state that I'm in, Alabama, I'm pretty sure there's like a 30% obesity rate or something like that.
That's
Crazy
right.
stuff.
That's right.
So protein,
It's like one of
that's
the most
the
obese states in America. Um, but yeah, like let's move on. Let's switch topics. We got two more topics to go. That was the first one. Our second one is police brutality. So police brutality. What do you think? So we've seen in the past, a couple months, the Black Lives Matter movement has sprung up because George Floyd has got murdered by a cop or whatever, and the cop Derek Chauvin actually got like arrested and tried in court, and he's actually serving jail time for what he did, right? So that's we know about that. We also had the Black Lives Matter shit that popped up like 5 months ago, like after the pandemic started, and that was interesting to see. But so, what do you think is like the main like what do you think is going to happen in the future when it comes to like police brutality reform? How police are going to like remain nonviolent because they are out of control at
if
this
we
point.
don't
Usually violent and out of control. So how do you think they're going to reform themselves? Is it possible? First of all, is it possible? And second of all, how are they going to do it?
uh, don't defund the police. In fact, give them more funding. Just watch over them better and hire better policemen. And stop these riots in America. I mean, it's just turning into anarchism, which, in my opinion, is the least effective form of government. But I think it's about to all blow over and go back to how it was, like kind of after 2015. It's
Yeah,
kind of just going to go back to normal. Hopefully, if cops don't kill any more black people for no reason,
yeah. I
it'll
think
go
the
back to
problem
normal.
definitely
In my
is like
opinion.
many cops are using force, unnecessary force, to actually kill. They're killing black people. They're killing them, and they're harming them, even when they do nothing wrong. You know, a random black person could be walking down the street, and all of a sudden a cop hits
Well,
him in the back from behind and doesn't even care.
they're not just killing
These cops
black
are
people.
highly
They're
not
killing.
trained. They're trained, but they're trained to kill. They have a license to kill, and of course there are laws, rules, and stuff that go beyond that. But the main training thing that they have is training to defend themselves from attacks by killing, using their weapons, using their taser, using their gadgets to prevent.
They're not just killing black people. There are plenty of like
And they're
Hispanic deaths.
targeting black people mainly. Proportionally, it's bigger than everybody else.
Well, if you actually look at the statistics, in 2019 report I did the other day, white people had like 7 million American crimes and black people had like 2 million. But white people take up 73% of the U.S. population, while black people only take up 30%.
It's a larger
13.
portion of people from that particular race that are being affected by.
I think plenty of white people, Asians, are killed by police. But the media, especially the liberal media, only promotes the black people. It doesn't show how much white people are killed, stuff like that.
I tend to agree on that sentiment, and I think definitely the media portrays this entire situation as a huge misconception, when in reality we know this is reality. It's actually happening in neighborhoods nearby, Detroit, Philadelphia, all these cities that house many African Americans. These cities are being affected by these police officers negatively. These police officers are not leaving them alone. They're getting killed. All this stuff is happening dangerously. There's the crime rates high, soaring, destruction. And the problem is that there isn't any reform. There isn't anyone who's saying, yeah, we should prevent this from happening. We should probably do something about this, try to stop these police officers from killing these people. There isn't anyone who's really saying that besides, I'd say, maybe
I think there's plenty of people
Democrats.
saying that. How about the millions of protesters in the streets tearing up black businesses that they're trying to save? They're tearing them down. I mean, that's just kind of hypocritical to me. But to me, there are plenty of people discussing their racism more than in Martin Luther King's time, in my opinion.
I mean, it really depends on how you look at it, because I'm not sure, but like looking at it from like a purely statistical perspective, it's probably impossible to like really like set a specific opinion on that, because it's so like speculative, and the assumptions are too heavy on all these situations. Like we don't really know the facts about it. So like once we know the actual facts, we can distinguish between fact and fiction and opinion. That's when I think we can find something common and agreeing. But once we deviate from anything factual or reality wise, there is no going back. So, but now I think we should go to our next topic, which was what was it again? We said talk about police brutality. What else did we talk about? We need to talk about what is it? Remind me real quick what it was.
I think it was racism, inequality.
Racism and inequality. Yeah, that's what it was. Racism and inequality. Well, we already discussed racism. Racism's already, we already talked about that. But now inequality, I think, is a big one, but that's too complex. So let's just talk about like something simpler. Let's see here. Oh, Karl Marx. You know who Karl Marx is?
Communist man?
He's the guy who created the Communist Manifesto.
I read part of his manifesto.
He wrote the Communist Manifesto, and Vladimir Lenin took those ideas and implemented them into his army. He actually formed the Russian army in like early 1900s, and he used those ideas to kind of build this empire of people that kind of stood before him, and they were mainly peasants, mainly poor people, mainly peasants, people of different descents that came together, and they actually formed an army, and they fought in World War One. And so that's how he kind of united everybody underneath this one idea from Karl Marx. Karl Marx came up with the idea communism, yeah, and it's widely supported. To this day, it's widely supported. People, scholars all over the country, they think they think that's a great, fantastic, idealistic notion. However,
I live.
they know that there are some impracticalities about communism, socialism. Those two ideas are kind of difficult to pinpoint in reality, to kind of throw them into the mix of things that are actually fixed, concrete notions. But the thing about,
Yes,
but it has been tried before. People say it has been tried before in the past. It it
definitely.
will it will be tried in the future, of course. It's definitely an idea that's here to stay, and not it's not a bad. People say it's like a bad idea. It shouldn't have never
Very
been.
bad.
But there is no such thing as a bad idea per se. I mean, Karl Marx, maybe he was wrong. People say he was evil. He didn't know responsibility. He's evil. He's bad. He's a terrible human being. He's the cause of many people's deaths. People say he killed over 6 billion people. Right. So that, it's just all about perspective.
Communism
These ideas
has
are
killed
actually real, and
millions
they've
of
been
people.
placed in Russia, in United States. Bernie Sanders is a socialist.
All right, let me tell you why I think communism is bad. All right. Okay, if I was lived back then during the like pre World War One, I would have been a communist as well. It hasn't been tried out, fleshed out. But nowadays we can look at history, and you know why? You know why history is so important to learn from our past mistakes. And you know what's a big old past mistake? Something called the Holodomor. 6 million Ukrainians starved. It was a genocide. You know
What about the
why?
Holocaust too? The Holocaust was a mistake too. But that was during World War II.
Oh, that was a nationalistic, socialistic mistake. That wasn't a communist mistake. I'm talking about communism. Many
That was
people
a
were killed.
fascist mistake. That was a fascist mistake. That happened
No,
underneath.
Nazi was not
That
pure
that
fascism.
happened underneath Adolf Hitler's rule.
Yes, that they were nationalistic, socialistic, not fascism, though.
But there's no difference between those two. Those ideals. It still
Yes,
happened.
there is. Fascism.
The Holocaust
The
happened either way. I
fascism
mean,
censors everyone. Nationalistic,
so what's
socialistic.
between? Did you say national ideal?
No, the Nazis were nationalistic socialists. They were not fascist,
They
pure
were
fascist.
fascist. The Nazis were fascists. They weren't
No.
socialists.
They were the Nationalistic Socialistic Party of Germany.
But they
They
weren't true.
were.
They weren't true socialists, though. That's where you're getting it wrong. They were actually, in reality, they were fascists, more in terms of the ideas that they represented and behaved under, were fascist. I mean, you can look that up. There's research behind it, scientific literature, all
Fascist,
there.
pure fascism has nothing against Jews, black people, and it says nothing about the Aryan race being superior. For example, I have a fascist friend, and he believes in equality. He thinks everybody's equal. He doesn't have anything against black people or
Well, technically,
Aryans.
a fascist is opposed to democracy.
Yes, it's
So a
like on the
fascist
opposite
believes in
scale.
ideals that are above democracy, that they believe is above a democracy.
Definitely.
But obviously, I mean, come on now, like don't kid yourself. Like democracy is the greatest ideal ever invented.
I agree with that.
I mean,
I think if we did restrictive capitalism, like I was talking about like last night, where the corporations and stuff are heavily restricted, so it's not
yeah,
like socialism where people wouldn't work good jobs, but the corporations wouldn't be greedy and stuff. And I think that'd work really well, but I doubt the government would take that into serious consideration.
I can't really see corporations turning the other cheek when it comes to being not being greedy. And that's the nature of a capitalist society. Is you have these people at the top, like 1%, 0.001% of people that are just super greedy, hoard all the wealth for themselves, and they don't give it to anybody besides themselves. They invest it, they keep it invested into real estate and all this stuff, but they don't give it to anybody else. That's the nature of capitalism. That's what the whole point of capitalism is, pretty much. I mean, even historically speaking, like Karl Marx said, the history of capitalism is a history of class struggles. That's one of his biggest takeaways, main points that he's given out to everybody.
Yet
I mean,
communism
Karl
creates
Marx. I think
struggle.
Karl Marx
Well,
was a right human being for the time. I think he wrote his books. Right now, I'm reading Das Kapital, which means capital in English. He, he's actually did that book. I mean, I'm in the middle of it right now. I haven't finished it yet, but it's such a good so far. It's like really amazing the way that he connects these ideas regarding wealth financially. And you just never see anything like that, really anywhere besides Karl Marx. I mean, Karl Marx is just like a unique person. Like his writings, his literature, the style. It's prose. I don't know if you know what prose is. It's like prose fiction. When you write about prose fiction, it's like about pretty much anything you write. You write whatever the thoughts are coming to your mind. They're flowing, they're flowing, they're flowing, and you just put them all down on paper. That's pretty much how Marx writes. But the thing about Marx is that he writes them connecting with ideas regarding capitalism and financial stuff. So it's the best of both worlds. But the problem many critics say about Karl Marx is that he's very unrealistic. He's very idealistic. He thinks on things through like a lens of like delusion.
yes, communism is good on paper, but in actual practice, it's not good. You gotta
Right, right,
change human nature to make communism work the way it's intended to, because it inadvertently creates class, even though it's trying to eliminate class. It just doesn't work.
right. Well, well, that's all we got time for today. So I thank you for coming to the show and talking. So I really appreciate it, Gavin.
Thanks
Right, it
for
was
having
nice
me.
talking to you. Have a good rest of your day. I'm gonna put this on YouTube. So thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
See you
Bye.
soon. Bye.